Hello, my name is Larry Taylor. I'm a life coach who specializes in situations where people find themselves spiritually stuck. And this is a series of short videos that I've been making about specifically that subject. We started out with a metaphor of a little story, fictitious story of a hiker who gets stuck in the mud and has to get out of the mud and knock the mud off and then proceed on down the path of life. Later on, joining a group to help others who get in similar situations. And then in our second short video, we talked about the difference between spiritual stuckness and other kinds of being stuck. We humans get stuck in lots of different ways in our jobs, in our marriages, with our health, physical health, and so forth. But those areas are not the areas that I'm specifically honing in on. I'm talking about being spiritually stuck. And I defined what I meant by that. And then we've been giving some examples. And the examples that we've been giving have been semi-true, or you could say it the other way, semi-fictitious scenarios, fictitious names. The characters are composite characters, but the situations and the solutions are real. I'd like to bring this little series of videos to a conclusion by telling you a true story about a good friend of ours. However, I won't use her real name. I'm going to call her Lanny, which was one of my maternal aunt's names. That was not her name. But at any rate, this is a completely true story other than the name. My wife, Kathy, that's her real name, was talking to some folks outside of church. And the little church that we went to was right next to a very large inner city hospital. And there were two women who were waiting for the bus. And Kathy struck up a conversation with them and asked them how they were doing. And one of the women asked Kathy if she would take the other woman, Lanny, and give her a ride to the homeless shelter because Lanny had very severe neuropathy and was unable to walk without excruciating pain. Plus, she didn't have shoes that fit. And so Kathy said, oh, certainly, she would be happy to do that. She took her to the homeless shelter. Along the way, learned that she didn't have shoes that fit. She took her and bought her some shoes. Took her to the homeless shelter. When she got there, there were several women who were involved in a physical fight outside. And Lanny told Kathy that kind of thing was going on pretty continuously inside. And basically it was a terrible place to have to be. So Kathy asked her if she would be willing, found out more about her, found out that she was addicted to alcohol, that she'd been an alcoholic for almost all of her life. Also found out that she was addicted to benzodiazepines, which had been prescribed by doctors for the neuropathy. It wasn't that she was trading in them illegally or getting them off the street or anything like that. But physicians had continued to prescribe these things until now she was thoroughly addicted to them as well, on top of the alcohol addiction. In addition to that, her boyfriend had taken another woman under his wing, I guess, and had dumped Lanny unceremoniously, left her in a parking lot at a casino. Eventually, some police officers found her, and they drove her to this particular homeless shelter where she had spent the night. Then she got really sick. They had sent her to the hospital. The hospital had released her, and now she was going back to this place. She told Kathy that she was wanting to be free of the various addictions, that she wanted to go to a rehab facility. Kathy did very, very extensive research. There are almost no treatment facilities that will take someone who is addicted to benzodiazepines, because getting off of them is extremely dangerous. A person can die being weaned off of benzos. So the combination of alcohol treatment and the addiction to the benzodiazepine precluded her being accepted by treatment center after treatment center after treatment center. Kathy was finally able to find one that was a medical treatment center, had the staff and the facilities to treat her. Picked her up the following day and drove her quite a distance to this treatment facility. While she was at the treatment facility, coming off of the benzodiazepine, she went into very severe, life-threatening seizures and was emergently transported to a hospital where she was completely delirious. Kathy drove, again, this was many hours drive from where we live, went to the hospital, stayed with her 3 or 4 days, sitting by her bedside day and night, praying for her. She was out of it. She was completely disoriented. She was having massive seizures. She could not speak for most of that time. Kathy was the first one in her life to ever show her love in a true sense. This woman had been rejected by all of her family and had been abused by multiple boyfriends over the course of many decades. So Kathy not only stayed with her, but also made arrangements for her to go from the hospital to a alcoholic treatment facility, which was faith-centered. Got her transferred there. She did well. At the end of the time in the treatment facility, there was a lot of discussion about where is she going to go now. Kathy, of course, kept me apprised of all that was going on, and she said, would you object if we brought her to live here? I said, of course not. And so Kathy arranged a lower portion of our house as a separate apartment and got Lanny moved in to that place, and she did very, very well. She was clean, she was sober, she was a kind and nice person. she came to understand faith in Christ in a way that she had never understood it before. She was raised kind of in a nominally Catholic home, but not really much connection with the gospel and with love in her particular situation. So she grew in her faith, and she became really part of our family. The neuropathy was still very much there, and she could not walk without excruciating pain. But managed to have a life, and we enjoyed having her. The pain increased. Doctor's appointments were made. Pretty soon, physicians had prescribed the same kinds of medications to which she had been addicted, and very, very quickly she became addicted to them again. Still, she was sober and doing well, and it was our hope that she could make it on her own. Kathy helped her find an apartment and a place to live, was hopeful that she could be connected with support systems in the area. Once she got out of our house and into her own place, an old boyfriend reconnected with her, and in fact the same one that had dumped her in the parking lot. And pretty quickly she was back drinking again. And although she tried really hard, she was never able to get free from the drugs and alcohol again. And then one evening, with her boyfriend in a cheap flea bag hotel, she died of a abdominal aneurysm. I was told by the coroner that that's very common among alcoholics. She was in her 50s, early 50s, when she died. We were able to reconnect with one of her daughters. She has two daughters, but one would have absolutely nothing to do with her. The other was willing to reconnect and willing to work on forgiveness issues, and there was some reconciliation that took place. And that daughter was able to raise a little bit of money so that her body could be cremated, and then it was sent to her, and her remains are with her daughter in another state. But her spirit and soul are in the loving arms of a loving God. And she is free, and she is whole, and she is complete. She is, on the one hand, a very sad example of someone who could never get out of the mud. She was spiritually stuck. God used my wife Kathy to hoist her out of the mud and to get the mud knocked off, and started her down the path, and then other people and other circumstances came in and essentially turned her around and pushed her right back into the mud. And this time she wasn't able to get out. She died in it. So not all the stories are stories of victory and happiness. But ultimately, this one is such a story. I believe that God looked at Lanny's life and loved her so much that God essentially said, "Sweetheart, I know you're not going to make it. I know life is going to continue to be a series of losses and abusive people and abusive situations and physical pain and emotional pain. And so I'm just going to bring you home. And I believe with all my heart that she is with the Lord and that she is free of all addiction and that we're going to see her again. I also believe with all my heart that was the result of a number of poor choices that she and others made, and that there is a better path that God has for all of us, that we can, not just when we get to heaven, but in this life, with God's help, be unstuck and free. And that's my prayer for you.